Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Risk with Dr. Naveen Agarwal. Each week, we talk about a topic related to risk management of medical devices in a very casual and informal way. This is not a webinar or lecture. Rather, our goal is to talk about key topics and challenges in a very informal way and share best practices. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, and I'm the principal and founder at Achieve, where my personal mission is to help you achieve success in risk management. My guest in this episode is Kevin Posey. He came from the aerospace industry, but he has been working in the medical device space for many, many years. In this conversation, we are focusing on the importance of purchasing controls, especially in light of the recent Boeing story where the cabin door of a Boeing 737 MAX blew open during flight. And they are tracing it back to deficiencies in supplier quality controls and the overall quality system. So we are not going deep into the Boeing story, but we are taking that as an example to review some of the challenges and best practices for purchasing controls in our medical device space. Now, we had this conversation as part of our live LinkedIn audio series each week in front of a live audience. You're about to hear a recording of our conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our weekly Let's Talk Risk conversation on LinkedIn. So excited to see all of you. Many familiar faces in the audience today, but also several folks who are joining for the first time. I welcome all of you. And guys, know that this is going to be a very casual and informal conversation. I'm so excited to welcome my guest, Kevin Posey, today. He has years of experience in many different industries. So we're going to learn a little bit about Kevin, and we're going to talk about the theme of our discussion today, which is going to be around purchasing controls. With that said, Kevin, I'm so excited to welcome you. Thanks for being on the show today. Please start by introducing yourself to our audience today.
Thanks so much, Naveen. Yes, it's really my honor to be here this morning talking with you and with the distinguished guests. Real quick about myself. I'm the head of quality regulatory for Genesis Spine. So I'm in the med tech space, have been for over 25 years. And as Naveen, you indicated, I did actually start my career in aerospace and defense. So this Boeing story is the one that's kind of near and dear. So I worked with both, primarily with military aircraft early in my career, but that was a very interesting story. But having spent the last 25 years, what's near and dear to my heart is that application of risk management supplier controls to our medtech businesses, whether that's devices, in vitro diagnostics, or pharma for that matter. So looking forward to having this discussion.
That's awesome, Kevin. And we know, of course, Boeing has been in the news lately, but generally building an aircraft is a complex procedure. And there are too many suppliers, similar to what we have in the medical device industry also. We have very diverse and fragmented supply chain. So this issue is very important. So just to set the stage, can we remind our audience why particular topic about this supplier control for Boeing is relevant today? Can you just help us, quickly recap that?
Well, you kind of touched on a big part of that. Whether it's commercial aerospace, rail transport, transport systems that I guess would include rail, where the risk of mass casualty event is very high, the need to really effectively manage risk and along with the considerations of a very diverse supply base, multi-level of suppliers. So a supplier to your supplier to your supplier. So various tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3, sometimes referred to like for automotive, becomes critical. Some of that, the management is about interchangeability. So if you've got 3 potential suppliers, you're not worried about unacceptable deviation from one supplier to the other. Mm-hmm. The other part of that would be risk. Particularly, part of risk management is actually risk transfer. And as manufacturers in any of the kind of major industries, part of what we do to transfer that risk is to outsource some of that work.
Yeah.
But that adds a burden on a different part of the organization, typically our purchasing, our supplier quality teams, to ensure that supplier can perform as well as if we were doing that work internally.
Yeah.
And that's not always true. And it's a challenging environment. So I'm talking about this Boeing 737 MAX 9 issue is there's still a lot of information to come out. So we're not the experts in any of the details, but we can speculate. And some of the information that's come out has definitely led to some understanding that's likely somewhere was a breakdown in the supplier risk management process that has led to the issues.
Yeah. And, we definitely don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but I want to remind our audience that this topic is going to be so important under QMSR. I was reading sort of a preamble for the final rule that they have published in comment number 33. Actually, FDA is telling us that FDA generally believes that an appropriate mix of supplier and manufacturer quality controls are necessary. Moreover, they are saying, however, finished device manufacturers who conduct product quality control solely in-house must also assess the capability of suppliers to provide acceptable products. So it's okay. It's okay to kind of have suppliers transfer some of the risk to them, but it's not okay to kind of wash our hands off and say, that's it, right? That's what I'm hearing here in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that the agency is going that direction because I think it's pretty practical, but in the crush of business demands, it's easy even for us in quality compliance to forget that and to kind of almost breathe a sigh of relief of feeling like we've transferred that risk.
Yeah.
But ultimately the risk is ours to maintain, even as managing that from an OEM or, manufacturer, into manufacturer perspective. So yeah, we never transfer all the risk is the key thing.
Right. So one of the things we were just talking before we went live, which I think I want to touch upon, is one of the gaps that came up in our conversation is that we do lead supplier control somewhere else, but on a product level, when we try to do risk management and do, let's say, risk management plan or risk management file, we hardly ever touch on that at all, even though there might be some linkages, right? Is that something that you can talk about from your experience that you might have seen where it may become important?
Yeah, in a general sense, and I'll get a little more specific. General sense, what I've seen, I would categorize it as compliant, but with lots of room for improvement, is the risk management process for suppliers tends to be similar but disconnected from the product risk management side. So we may have a very detailed DFMEA as far as a risk assessment for our product, but it tends to not get detailed enough so that I can say, all right, component A of this that I source, that component has a specific residual risk under the design FMEA. So there are specific, and that's the key, specific risks that I need to manage and maintain via the supplier, which may be inspection and maybe some form of formal testing or performance testing. And what tends to happen is not that. It tends to be more general, where we say, okay, we've got a critical supplier, so my supplier control is to audit them every other year. So I'm doing an on-site audit, which is a good thing. But we may not be effective as calling out some specific things like a control plan, having regular metrics from that supplier on the technical characteristics, the essential performance and basic safety characteristics. So when we miss that, we're really, I think, missing the full opportunity to have visibility, awareness, and more importantly, management of that risk.
Yeah. And I think when we are talking about a specific product, maybe it has some components or raw materials that are slightly different than what we have used in the past. Maybe we are acquiring those raw material components from the same supplier. They are on our approved supplier list. They're critical and we have controls in place. But I'm just thinking out loud here. And again, guys in the audience, I would love to have you share your opinion on this as well. Wouldn't it be nice that in the risk management plan itself, for the production and post-production phase, we identify some specific, to your point, some specific controls we want to put in place for a limited period of time outside of our general supplier controls? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, that would be excellent.
So guys, this is an example of a risk-based approach. We just talked about a risk-based approach to purchasing controls. And I know it is challenging in practice. So Kevin, before I invite people for a conversation, can you share some of the challenges you have seen in practice in applying a risk-based control to purchasing.
Absolutely. So I won't get into specific names, right? Because it's not about attribution. It's about us learning from some real life examples. But at a prior company, particularly a small company, startup, this is kind of a classic issue: is do you have enough staff trained on risk management? In this case, we might suppose maybe not, but engineering staff were the ones responsible for the design and created a relationship with the contract manufacturer, which was great in the prototype phase. But that transition to design controls and commercialization didn't happen very smoothly. So transition of things like putting in place a supplier quality agreement with some very specific, something beyond the boilerplate of payment terms and delivery terms, things like that, but getting into critical characteristics and regular follow-ups didn't happen. And then there were spotty communications and some missed communications such that actually some delivered product that was intended to be pre-production or production equivalent material really was advanced prototypes. And that was a significant negative impact on the company as far as being able to proceed with formal verification and validation, which was part of the intent. And that's a whole separate topic for another day, is, the production equivalence from a contract manufacturing supplier. Are you actually meeting all those requirements? So there was some significant remediation effort necessary. One of the main issues was actually the compliance documentation. Essentially, DHRs are device history records for a medical device. It's the evidence that the system was produced in a production-like environment, and that was a significant issue. And then the bigger picture, just to take one quick step back and then turn it back over, is that connection, as you mentioned, Naveen, between the full risk management process, or the product risk management process as delegated or referred to the supplier, never happened. So things like a subassembly DFMEA, and more importantly, the process FMEA, which would be critical for our suppliers, at least as one tool, as an option, never happened. And when the quality compliance team picked it up, it was really all about rapid remediation, because it's now, all hands on deck, emergency mode. That's not supplier management, or not valid risk management. That's that's the word I'm looking for. It's a response.
Yeah, it's more reactive. Yeah. So I think two key points that I heard here is we want to create proper linkages. We do so much work in design and development. We do great work, right? We solve great problems, but we don't have enough linkages and communication to facilitate a smooth transfer for large-scale production or post-production phase. Does that sound about right in a summary?
That's absolutely critical. And that's a fundamental still to this day. I mean, how long has ISO 14971 been out in the industry? And yet the continuous process, the continuous life cycle approach of risk management still is not broadly understood or applied.
Yeah.
It's not project deliverables and then you turn them in and you're done. It's a life cycle.
And purchase product is a very important part of that life cycle, is it not? I think that's what we are saying. Great. So guys, this is a perfect setup for a great conversation. I know, Ed, you are already requesting to speak, so I'm going to bring you up on stage. Everybody in the audience, you don't have to wait your turn. There is no waiting turns here. If you are interested in participating, raise your hand anytime, and I'm going to bring you on stage and give you the floor one by one. So Ed, you are on. Please share your thoughts.
Okay, Naveen, this is an excellent discussion. I spent a number of years as a supplier quality engineer, so this is right down my alley. And it's never been well explained in the regulations, but the requirements are there that we provide information to our suppliers that an element of the design is something that needs to be paid special attention to. Mm-hmm. And I looked at FDA's guidance in and the regulation. And well, I talked to the person who wrote the regulation. I said, now what does in 21 CFR 82030D design output, where it says, ensure those design outputs that are essential for the proper functioning of the device are identified. And she said, well, those are the risk control measures, first of all. So that's the proper functioning includes safety and effectiveness, okay?
Yes.
Which is what the FDA always talks about. So the safety part is the risk control measures. And she also said that regardless of who does the activity, the person whose name is on the device is responsible for everything in it.
Yeah.
So you cannot defer your responsibility out to a supplier. It's your baby, and you have to identify that in the design outputs that those things need to be paid close attention to, and that's passed on to the supplier so that they can do the proper oversight over their manufacturing processes to produce a product that is required. Now, I went ahead and looked at 13485 since we're moving in that direction, and 13485 says much the same thing. It says specify the characteristics of the product that are essential, and here's where it goes further than the FDA. Essential for its safe and proper use.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've called that out there. So then I went ahead and looked at the guidance document for 1345, a practical guide for 1345, which was written by the same committee that wrote the standard. And guess what? It says absolutely nothing about that. So they put the requirement in there, but they don't explain it in their guidance document. So anybody that's on the 1345 technical committee, since they have started the process to put together the update of 1345, and you can submit comments.
Yeah.
Now is the opportunity to ask for a clarification on that.
That would be a great contribution. But Ed, I think what I'm loving about this conversation is you are helping us see the linkage right from risk analysis to risk controls to transfer to production and post-production. You're helping us see that. And it's there. We just are not able to execute. And I want folks to understand, when you do your risk management planning, make sure you have an eye on it. Otherwise, you will drop the ball. Does that sound about right?
I need to go one more place, Naveen.
Sure, go ahead.
And that's point to the GHTF purchasing guidance document, which is a superb document in all of the purchasing controls area. And I didn't look at that this morning, but there's information in there that covers all of this stuff. So that's probably the best guidance that is available in purchasing controls.
Got it, Dad. Thank you so much. Thank you.
One quick thought on that, Naveen. I would kind of expand, because for me, a historical area that gets very difficult is this desire from a company perspective in design is to leverage off-the-shelf components, or what you might even call, ad hoc, semi-custom. But let's just stick with off-the-shelf components. That and then the issue is where there is some significant issues with basic safety or essential performance under the EU system, under MDR, or and I think it's very analogous to how the agency is looking at it, and certainly moving that way. But when you've got something that's basic safety or essential performance related to an off-the-shelf item where we're potentially buying from a distributor, so it could be down to component electronics level, we're buying things bulk from an AVNet or a mouse, or how do we manage the risk related to that? And I would pose that that's one of those, there is no risk that you can transfer to that supplier, because there really is no supplier relationship. So that does really bring back to us, like Evan was saying, is it's always us as the OEM responsibility. But the challenge with the thought process in industry is, it's off the shelf. It's everybody's using it, quote.
Yes.
Everybody's using it. So there's no risk, right? No, because it's important, at least in the med device, pharma, biologics, combo devices, intended use becomes super important. I'll just pick one example because it was applicable to a past company. I'm transmitting data from a computer system to a display, so I need some form of HDMI splitter or enhancer, and I'm going to buy one from Amazon because it's $1.99 and I can have it tomorrow. I mean, what's not to like about that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that imaging, you're showing something in an operating suite, and that imaging is critical to the safe operation of your device, and particularly the impact on the patient, that may not be appropriate. Worst case, it's not appropriate. You may have to go custom. That is that integrated, at least one example of an integrated management approach that I see companies struggling with, and where it's a historical competition between price and safety, and where we as compliance professionals have to be able to speak up.
Yeah. Great point, Kevin. Thank you. Roger, I know you've been waiting so patiently. I appreciate that. I want to invite you now to unmute your mic and share your thoughts.
Well, I wanted to pile on, and I'm going to pick up right where Kevin left off.
Okay.
I think that in all the companies I've worked at, I have to say engineering has done a poor job of defining the key characteristics or the critical characteristics. Really, they have not thought deeply about this, and in the early days, I'm including myself in this, but as time has gone on, I try to challenge myself to do a better job of this, because if it doesn't start there, all these other things we've talked about, that Kevin talked about or Ed talked about, it just makes it even more confusing. You have disconnected issues and reactive modes going on. So really, I would say for these 4 or 5 companies I worked for, there wasn't even training in that. So I'm always looking for information on how to do a better job of that. And I know we have some tools out there, DFMEA or hazard analysis may help us focus on that. But I'm saying that starting with design engineering, they need to do a better job of helping point out the things that are going to be most critical to everybody else involved in creating the product.
So I think it points back to a little bit on communication and collaboration side. It's my feeling, Roger, and I don't want to speak out of place here, but it's my feeling that engineers are not ignoring this on purpose. I don't think any engineer will ignore this on purpose. They are just not able to ensure that it gets communicated and captured appropriately. And we work in complex cross-functional teams. So I would say, as much as we would want the engineers to sort of have everything neatly and tightly done, it's a cross-functional, cross-collaboration perspective that we should not underemphasize. Does that make sense, Roger? I wanted to make sure that we are not saying anything derogatory about the engineers.
No, I agree with what you say. When I say they're not doing a good job of it, I mean, I'm going to say out of ignorance. And I've been in many a cross-functional team where now looking at, with my experience in years, I can look back and think the cross-functional team members, again, maybe because of ignorance of what really should be happening, did not do a good job of pushing back and say, give us more.
Yeah, or we were just not aware. So, Roger, I love your contributions on this forum, and I know you well. I know where you are coming from. I just want our audience not to misunderstand this. So that's why I thought of clarifying it. Thank you so much, Roger.
No problem.
Juan, yes, go ahead, please, Ed.
This is Ed. I think building on what Roger's saying and going clear back to what Kevin was saying originally, one of the big problems is how we measure our projects. Mm-hmm. Okay? We measure based on time and cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We do not measure on quality, performance, or anything like that. And this goes clear back to the Boeing situation, because Boeing changed their measurement system to time and cost. And they're not measuring on safety and performance and all the quality activities. So it's caused our engineers to focus on getting the thing done as quickly as possible and at the lowest possible cost. So the drivers from the top management are what are causing these problems, Kevin and Roger.
Great point. So we have to keep our eyes open on that. Juan, I'm so excited to welcome you. Please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Hey, Naveen, thank you very much. And to all the people that have spoken, thank you for your contributions. And Kevin, from a cross-functional perspective, and as Edwin was saying, the ignorant part of it is usually my area, because I'm an MD and I joined the corporate world about 10 years ago, working heavily in a cross-functional team, understanding risk management, and then that's how it became a passion. And working medical devices, it is kind of a no-brainer as I'm coming in that you need medical contribution to risk management, and that, you guys know, has been growing. Risk management, I see it as a need to be a cross-functional activity. It is the documentation, is the data of the what-ifs. Mm-hmm. And it's not a crystal ball effect, but it's a data-supported cross-functional activity to determine the potential risks with the probabilities of a potential harm of happening. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're being faced by that push from either the commercial or R&D team to launch that product, and you have to come to a conclusion of taking the risk to launch. And me, from a safety perspective, having a worst case mentality, mm-hmm. We're not prone to taking that risk. So kind of my question to you guys is reactive or proactive, right? We determine the things here, we document, we may not find the best material, we may not find the best things that we want, but they're okay. So let's launch and see what it happens. And then we face from a reactive position all what we were talking about earlier, Naveen, on having to, declare nonconformance, a potential health hazard evaluation. So what's a percentage there of risk on the risk of taking the risk? If you
That's fascinating, one. I love it. Kevin, would you have any thoughts to share? I mean, I can definitely chime in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Juan, you bring up great points. I mean, one, I hardly agree. Having experienced doctors, surgeons, practitioners, clinicians involved is so critical early on, particularly to get a good feel for the impact, right? The safety side, the severity of risk. To your point, there is definitely a risk. So proactive and reactive, my answer is yes, there's both. Because even though we are compliance focused, we are ultimately beholden, and we want to serve the business interests as well. That's not our primary, but it is something else we react to. So there is a comfort level that needs to happen with compliance professionals or risk management professionals to understand what's good enough. And a lot of that sometimes comes down to we don't know exactly what good enough is. If we've got a breakthrough product, never been on the market, or one that's relatively new technology, there are a lot of unknowns. We know what we know. Sometimes we know what we don't know, but it's the classic one is we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. So there has to be a good mix of do as much as we can in advance within practical business constraints. Yeah. And our side is to lobby the senior executives to ideally spend more than they want, but we'll end up probably spending less than what we want. But then have that quality system, right, that risk management full life cycle approach where we are gathering that data immediately post-market, immediate after commercialization, and be very responsive to any signals in that first particularly, like say 6 months or a year. And it's going to depend on the industry, the particular area and the product.
Yeah. I think what I would add to that, Kevin, is risk management to me is like not a destination. It's an ongoing activity. It's a journey. And I think what need to recognize, do your best at all times, be willing to learn and stay open. The resilience, to me, is the resilience that is more important. Are we fast enough to react? So guys, another topic for another discussion. I know we have practically run out of time. So Kevin, I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to capture your thoughts and share maybe 2 or 3 key takeaway messages for us today. But guys, I want to share with you a couple of key announcements in the meantime. The first one is I want to introduce you to a new feature I have just launched on the Let's Talk Risk website. This is called a feature, Ask Me Anything About Risk Management. I'm not claiming to have all the answers, guys. The forum is for us to engage and submit our questions. If I don't know the answer, I will research and talk to people who I think might have an answer for you and write up an article for you. So take a look at that, participate, submit your questions. The second announcement I want to make is that next week I'm going to be doing a webinar, which is going to be a step-by-step walkthrough for you, how to complete a benefit risk assessment using a worksheet provided by the FDA. So we're going to walk through that. If you're interested in that webinar, just contact me and I'll send you the registration details. And finally, and most importantly, know that this forum is open to everybody. All of you, I believe, without exception, have unique insights and experiences to share with us. It is our place. It does not belong to one expert or another expert. It is for all of us. So I urge you to reach out to me, become a part of this. Raise your hand and say, hey, I want to contribute. I want to participate. Let's make this better week after week. With that, Kevin, you're on. Please share a couple of bullet points that we can take away today.
Excellent. Thanks, Naveen. So a couple of things I would tie it back to. I think the takeaways here is when it comes to supplier risk management, is the key is the devil's in the details. Where almost probably every company represented here today has a compliant supplier management process. But we have to ask ourselves, is it really doing what we need? Are we checking the box in risk management? Are we auditing just for the sake of getting that audit report? Or are we actually actively managing the risk, both proactively and reactively? And that gets into, I think both Ed and Roger brought up, it's not that our designers are intentionally missing things, but their metrics, what's in it for them, and they're being driven by different metrics. And we as the compliance professionals just need to be involved earlier so that their success-based thought process, which is based on making it perform under best case conditions, is also matched by that risk approach, which is to say, what happens if it fails in an FMEA approach, or how do we get down to failure in a fault tree analysis? So apply those tools early. So that would be, I think, for me, the key takeaway. And I would just also back up what you were saying. We've got a ton of experience represented in the panel here. People spoke up, but I've learned some great things from people brand new to med device, brand new to risk management. They each come with different eyes. So everyone on this webinar, definitely you've got important feedback, important information that we need to know about. I'll leave one last thing. Maybe this is a future topic, Naveen. How about applying, generative AI or something like that to our different data streams to help with identifying signals for risk? I think it's been covered on a few others, but I think that's still an interesting discussion and opportunity. But
I think I love it. There's so much opportunity there. So guys, one last thing I will tell you, many of you who feel they are very early in their careers and they might feel intimidated by raising their hands, I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm probably the most ignorant person on this panel. It is my desire to continually learn, and sometimes the question you might ask is the question in somebody else's mind too. So don't hold back. I want you to participate as much as possible. And look, if you are hesitant, send me a note. I will read your question without naming you. Okay? There's a chat button. You can message me during the conversation, but I want your voice to be heard. With that, guys, thank you so much, Kevin, Roger, Ed, and Juan. Thank you for making this such a beautiful conversation. I'm energized. Are you guys excited about this? Please use the emoji icons to tell me how you are feeling. I want to know that it is delivering value to you week after week. I love it. Thank you so much. We will connect once again next week, guys. Have a good weekend and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.